Nappin,
And I'm Teddy Nappin.
and welcome to Gun Lawyer. So we have an issue I want to bring to my listeners' attention, and it has to do with the impact that hunting can have on your Second Amendment rights. A lot of folks don't.
Is it the long-winded debate between rabbit season and duck season?
Exactly. That's what it is. And never get into a debate with Daffy Duck if you want to save your gun rights. No, what I'm talking about is the issue in which the Second Amendment oppressors try to use everything and anything they can to disenfranchise us of our gun rights. And if you end up having hunting violations, now not only in New Jersey, if you get 2 violations, do you use your hunting, you lose your hunting privileges. They like to call it privileges, although I really think hunting is a right. Many states have actually enshrined hunting rights as a right in their constitution. Now, of course, New Jersey hasn't done that. But anyway, either way, if you end up with a violation of any of the myriad of ridiculous fish and game laws, some are so petty and insane you can't even believe they're on the books. You get 2 of those, and you're going to have a mandatory license suspension of hunting and fishing and trapping privileges. And that's bad enough. But I think one of the ramifications that people don't realize is that hunting violations can also cost you your ability to own and possess firearms and be licensed in New Jersey to have firearms. Here's how it works. Here's their gambit. So one of the disqualifiers in New Jersey under the licensing law is called public health, safety, welfare based on character and temperament. So we call it public health, safety, welfare. I call it the all-inclusive miscellaneous weasel clause because that's what it is. It's a very subjective reason that is often abused by issuing authorities, and even abused to the point, as we've discussed, of being racist, in which blacks are denied their gun rights, using that provision at a ratio of more than 2 to 1 than whites, just on that provision alone. But that's not where the only area of abuse comes in. They will attempt, they being the government, will attempt to use hunting violations, and we've had any number of cases where they do this, against your ability to be licensed under New Jersey law. So there are some particular hunting violations that they're very hot to pull this lever, and other ones in the aggregate, or just depending on whether the issuing authority has a hard-on for you or whatever, they will attempt to use these things against you. And you want to be aware of that problem. So one of the big ones that will really cost you and is a very serious hunting violation. But remember, you can have these minor stupid ones too, and they add up, and they'll say you're irresponsible as a gun owner if you have too many of these, or if your hunting license is suspended, because you got hit twice for having the wrong shade of orange that you're wearing. That's one of the offenses. It doesn't matter, because then they're going to say, well, you're not following the hunting laws properly, and therefore you're not responsible citizen. Now, we've usually, though, one of the big ones anyway, is it's under Chapter 23, which is where the hunting and fishing regs are found. And it's 23.7-3, and it's causing injury to property of another. If you hear a person while hunting, fishing, trapping, or taking wildlife causes or assists in causing damage or injury to real or personal property of another, including pets, you're liable for a civil penalty not to exceed $2,000, and that's paid to Fish and Game, and goes to their hunter and anglers fund. So they love Fish and Game loves the Fish and Game laws because it puts money in their coffer. So you think you're going to work it out some way, but that's difficult because they're there with their hand out, wanting to take your money. And for the first offense, by the way, you have a suspension of all license certificates. That's for everything, okay? Hunting, fishing, trapping, all of it, to take or possess wildlife for 5 years. You get a 5-year suspension. And for a second offense, you're looking at revocation of all licenses and certificates permanently. So it would be bad enough that you end up permanently losing your ability to hunt and fish, which, by the way, there's many states have reciprocity with New Jersey's hunting and fishing laws, so that if you're prohibited in New Jersey, you get prohibited in those states as well. So be aware of that. But they then will attempt to use these things to somehow show that you're a danger, that you're unsafe, and that you're irresponsible. And of course, there's Fish and Game law. That's very serious. If you end up causing personal injury, even purely by accident, but if you cause personal injury, then of course they're going to be all over you for that and claim that you are irresponsible and a danger, etc. So these are areas where there's vulnerability beyond even your ability to hunt and fish in New Jersey and trap. Now, they'll also look at what is the 450 rule. Now, under the 450-foot rule, New Jersey has a hunting reg that says that you cannot be within 450 feet of a building or playground, right? And if you are within 450 feet of a building or playground with a loaded firearm or a nocked arrow, then you're looking at a problem if it's an occupied building or a playground. And again, it's a civil penalty for not less than 100 or more than 200 for the first offense, and not less than 200 or to 500 for a second offense. But if you are convicted of this, not only can you lose your license, okay, but on that second offense, again, it's a permanent revocation, permanent, forever, of your hunting and fishing. And if you end up with a 450 for a loaded firearm, again, the state will claim that you're a danger, that you're irresponsible, that you are somebody who should not have a firearm at all. If you are convicted of any of the multitude of other violations, they can put them together. They'll look at your entire background while hunting and any of the offenses that you may have had or even just been charged with. Even if you're not convicted, they'll still try to use it against you and claim you're a danger to public health, safety, and welfare. We've had those cases. And then as a big problem, and I've had any number of these, is if someone happens to be a prohibited person. And maybe they're not even aware because they had a prior conviction, decades ago that they thought was sealed or expunged, but wasn't. Or they had a juvenile offense that's still a disqualifier. Or they've had a mental health commitment. Well, you're caught possessing, you're looking at not only a criminal charge of unlawful possession, which can be quite serious. Felon in possession, what New Jersey calls certain persons, well, that has a 5-year minimum mandatory period of incarceration in state's prison. So it's serious stuff, folks. And of course, being a convicted felon isn't going to help your resume, and it will cause you to be a prohibited person, lose your gun rights, become a second-class citizen, and all that. So beware of that. Make sure that you're legal to possess firearms. It seems like an obvious thing to say, but you'd be surprised how many folks fall into this trap. And the reason I say it's a trap is that if you're a convicted felon, you can go buy a hunting license. There's no NICS or background check done on a hunting license. Fish and Game gladly will take your money for a hunting license because they're all about the money, and they'll take it. And yet you can have a hunting license, but as a convicted felon, you just can't hunt, particularly with a firearm or possessing other weapons to hunt. So you can buy the license, but you can't undo the activity. But sometimes there'll be a misunderstanding where they think, well, they gave me a hunting license, so I should be okay, right? But you're not okay. And not only can you end up doing serious jail time. Go ahead.
Out of curiosity, could there be someone just, I don't know if there'd be like an individual that just do like going deer hunting barehanded, if that's ever been like a case or
I've never heard of that, and I don't know. It's probably animal cruelty statutes would kick in over deer wrestling or something to that effect. Who knows? I wouldn't put anything past New Jersey. Now, of course, if you barehandedly go bear hunting, I would have nothing but respect for you, but I don't think you want to do that. This is a problem, and you need to be aware that you're out there taking a risk when you're hunting of not just losing under New Jersey's draconian and strict hunting laws, but you're risking as well your Second Amendment rights. And of course, they've gamed the system to do that very thing, because everything in New Jersey is about somehow disenfranchising us of our gun rights, about taking away people's rights so they're not able to be gun owners, and about stealing our guns, which is why they have a multitude of ways to do gun seizures. Oh, and by the way, if that occurs where they're looking to revoke you, they will all the time move to forfeit all your guns while they're at it as well. So they'll look to take your guns, look to take away your gun rights, and this is the reason that New Jersey is a gun owner's hell. And I remember before I was even a lawyer, NRA ran an article about Lukey Schaefer in the early 80s. And Lukey was a trucker that happened to venture into Jersey with a cased and unloaded shotgun. And he ended up getting charged with unlawful possession. And I always remember that headline on the NRA article: New Jersey is a gun owner's hell. And you know what, folks? It hasn't changed. It still is a hell, and they've made it even hotter for us. And that's why it's very important that you be part of the fight, that you stand up for our rights. And as the movement for conservative voices is increasing beyond our wild expectations due to certain atrocities that have happened, it's very important that we take this opportunity to fight the oppression that is New Jersey, legally, lawfully, politically. And part of the way of doing that is by joining organizations that unite us in standing up for our rights. And one of the key organizations that do that is the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs. Now, that organization is an umbrella organization of gun clubs throughout New Jersey, and they also have individual memberships. And by being a part of the association, you're going to get email alerts so you can push a few buttons and let your voice be heard to the legislature. You're going to be advised about fights ongoing in the courts challenging the carry killer bill, the assault firearm ban, and the large capacity magazine ban, all those issues where they've further attempted to oppress us and keep us as victims of New Jersey gun law. And it's your state association that is critical in this fight. Now, there are other great gun clubs and gun organizations around New Jersey. This isn't saying that this is the only one. You should belong to every pro-gun group that you believe in, no question. But you have to belong to the association if you care about what's going on in New Jersey. The association has full-time paid lobbyists in Trenton, and they are really doing a great job in an extraordinarily difficult environment. So go to anjrpc.org and make sure you join and have your friends and family join, because there's power in numbers. And it's very important that you do that. You may think, oh, I'm just one person, but you can make a difference. And as our voices are heard and responses are sent in, the legislators do consider just how much outrage and political motivation there is to oppose them and to fight them. And so they take it seriously. And when we make a big showing because of the alerts that has been sent out by the association, it really does make a difference, and we've seen it. So also the association has become a good negotiator of our rights. We've been able to achieve things without legislative necessity. We've been able to work things out with the Attorney General, such as the no serial number gun ban that literally banned millions of guns in Jersey, and through efforts of the association and my colleague and good friend Dan Schmutter and myself and Scott Bach, who's the executive director, we were able to get the Attorney General to make clear that it was strictly limited to so-called, as readily understood, ghost guns only, and not all the pre-68 guns with no serial number, because that was legal prior to 68, and that it didn't apply to imported guns because they didn't have federal manufacturing registrations in New Jersey, and antiques and other guns and so forth. So it was a very important thing, literally saving millions. That was done through your association. We've also been able to get the criteria changed via the Attorney General for carry. We went from the John Wick carry requirement to CCARE, which is a reasonable course and test of your core competency, and so that individuals would qualify to get carry light. Again, accomplishment by your state association. So those are just a few examples, but through the years, if you wonder about, can you stop while you're transporting your firearm from, say, your home to the range? Can you stop for some food? Can you stop to go to the bathroom? Can you stop to get gas? Can you stop to pick up a friend? And the answer to those questions is yes, you can, as long as it's reasonably along the way. And why is the answer yes? Because of an Attorney General opinion that we worked out through the association. So these are all things where direct absolute benefits can be seen by the efforts of anjrpc.org. So make sure you belong and join. And the other thing important to do is belong to a gun club or organization. Now, we are good friends with We Shoot. We Shoot is an indoor range in Lakewood. It's a fantastic range, just great people. That's where Teddy and I shoot. And we love We Shoot. They have great courses and they have great trainers, and they are offering all the time amazing courses in firearms and in self-defense and in even other subjects, including ham radio operation, should the stuff ever hit the fan and you want to be able to communicate. So they really have some great stuff, and I would highly recommend going to We Shoot right there in Lakewood, conveniently off the Parkway. You can check out their website, of course, at WeShootUSA.com. And We Shoot also runs sales, and they have special guns they get in. And they happen to be highlighting this week the Colt 1911 Competition, which is a race-ready 45 ACP with Novak sights and match-grade performance, which is built for precision and podiums. They're also talking about the Marlin 1895 Trapper, a compact, fast-handling, chambered-in 4570 Government. This lever-action legend is back with Ruger quality and a threaded barrel for your suppressor setups. And what's really nice, that model Marlin 1895 and 4570 is the gun that both Teddy and I have bear hunted with. And in fact, it was the Marlin 1895 guide gun that literally saved my life while bear hunting when I was charged by a bear in the blind. Yeah, I was on a ground blind, my friends, because I don't care too much for the blinds that are high up in the sky. I find that I rarely fall off a ground blind, okay? But those of you that hunt elevated, I get it, it's fine. But I prefer a ground blind. But I'm in this ground blind, and this bear literally charged the blind where I was, and I had to shoot him point blank from the hip, virtually touching his body. And I just fired with a get the F away from me shot that luckily sent him sprawling, and it was a 4570 that did the job and put him down immediately. So I have a great love for my Marlin 1895 guide gun. Plus, it is the gun that used in Jurassic Park as protection against dinosaurs. So if you ever think that you want to keep dinosaurs away, well, look how effective the 4570 is, because I have yet to encounter a dinosaur while having my 4570 with me. So it must work really well. But I know it works perfectly on charging bears. I can personally vouch for that. And We Shoot's got the Trapper, which is a handy carbine setup in that great round. And of course, my favorite ammo is the Garrett load. Garrett makes a super hard cast 4570s that are like little freight trains. I think they've even taken the Big Five in Africa with that round. And man, was I glad I had that round and that gun. We Shoot is also offering a Beretta 92 XI SAO Tactical, which is a modern twist on a classic M9 with a single action only suppressor height sights and optics ready versatility. Now, of course, suppressors, unfortunately, are not legal yet in New Jersey. but plainly they need to be because it's hearing protection and they're a great idea. I mean, you wouldn't want to ride around in our cars without mufflers, right? And look, people rob banks in cars, and if you have a muffler, it's less likely for them to be hurt. I mean, it's a stupid logic. Like, are you kidding me? We need mufflers on cars, so give me a break. And you still hear cars, even with mufflers. Well, you still hear guns, even with silencers. It's just that it's not ear-shattering, ear-splitting noise. It's noise that you can actually hunt without hearing protection. You can hear game. You can hear other hunters. And in a home defense situation, it's ideal. It's not going to blow your ears out in your house should you have to fire. And it also helps control recoil. And if you're at the range and training, you can listen to commands very easily. I mean, they're a great accessory to firearms. New Jersey needs to get its act together on that one. And of course, we filed through association and others have filed a legal challenge to the constitutionality of New Jersey's ban on so-called silencers, which we call really suppressors, but the law calls silencers. And it is a very good thing. And plus, we have federal challenge in the big, beautiful lawsuit challenging the NFA regulations that have put silencers in the same category of machine guns since the 1930s. So there's a big movement, and most states, not including New Jersey, of course, have legalized silencers for hunting because they see the great advantage. So these firearms here are threaded for a suppressor. You can't have a suppressor yet, but hopefully down the road you'll be able to. And if you have any of those guns, you'll be set to go to buy a nice suppressor. So look, folks, check out We Shoot at WeShootUSA.com. Make sure you visit the range. You'll love it. It's a fantastic resource that we have in New Jersey. And let me also tell you about a resource in New Jersey, and that's my book, New Jersey Gun Law. It's the Bible of New Jersey gun law. Don't be left behind and not have the book. I wrote this book to try to keep you legal, keep you from becoming another victim of New Jersey gun laws, brought to you by the New Jersey Second Amendment oppression system. Okay, that's what our gun laws are. It's a system of Second Amendment oppression, and I have laid out for you how to navigate through that very complicated matrix of laws so that you can stay legal. It is the resource on the subject. Go to evannappen.com to get your copy today. Hey, Teddy, what do you have for us today in Press Checks?
Well, as you know, press checks are always free, and every now and then I want to do a double check on our opposition, particularly now, as to see what the spin that they've been cooking up.
Ooh, Oppo
and-
research, very important.
Yep, always a fun time, and it's from everyone's Bloomturd. Sorry, I misspoke. Is our outlet known as The Trace decided to run an article going off of.
Yeah, that's because
Trump.
there's not a trace of truth in them. That's what it is, a trace. Not even a trace of truth.
I will always give credit for being able to come up with funny names, like you know how MSNBC changed their name because they don't want to be associated. Now it's MS Now. I've heard it called BS Now.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Now.
good one, and everyone's favorite.
Well, they were competing with CBS. CBS. So anytime you watch that channel, you see BS.
Yeah, I'm more of a communist news network myself. But we're getting.
That's Mandami's favorite channel, I think.
I know, right? But going off of The Trace, Trump cancels domestic violence program. Wow, that sounds horrible and also probably inaccurate. As reading through the article, what they're freaking out about by this Alma Beavis, yes, or Multi-sites are scrambling after the Trump administration canceled a program designed to help tackle the dangers by guns in domestic abuse situations. What does that dress up? Domestic abuse situation, tackling the issue of guns. Ding, 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 ding. Red flags. They always love to dress it up. Every
Well,
single
that is one of the
time.
primary ways that New Jersey seizes guns is through that system. And New Jersey, it's so easy to make a claim of domestic violence. You just need a predicate act, which can run the gamut of any criminal offense, including harassment, which is a petty disorderly person's offense where the essence of harassment is doing something with purpose to annoy. Now, I know none of you have ever annoyed your spouse, right? You've never done that, because if you have, then you've committed domestic violence in New Jersey, because that's harassment. And then you can have your gun seized and restraining order placed against you. So it's custom made to be abused.
Anytime they try to say harassment, Dad, I always go back to, he threw pretzels at me.
Yes, actual case I had where the bassist for this champion shotgunning champion had all his guns seized was a complaint that he threw pretzels. That was it. That's all it took to qualify enough for a temporary restraining order. And as soon as that TRO issues, pre-printed on the form, pre-printed, is a search warrant to search and seize firearms. I mean, it's that warrant on there is unbelievable. I mean, it's harder to get a properly made sandwich at Wawa than to get a search warrant as part of a TRO. It's literally baked into the cake. They check the box and give the address, and there you go, because the DV itself is apparently sufficient to demand the seizure of Second Amendment rights and firearms, and you will then have to fight to regain your rights. And New Jersey has a law, by the way, that says anybody who's had guns seized pursuant to domestic violence becomes a prohibited person. So even if you weren't the violator, but your guns happen to be seized too, you're prohibited from having guns until those guns are returned to you. It's called the seized but not returned provision. And so if you are ever in a DV situation, even though the restraining order gets dismissed, you must get your guns back or you will lose your gun rights, and you are a prohibited person similar to a felon because you had guns seized and not returned.
Yeah. So, and kind of going off of that, you see where this money comes into play, where it was under the Department of Justice Firearms Technical Assistance Program, where they would give out these grant monies to different communities to help tackle the dangers posed by guns in domestic abuse situations. And the example they give is there was a $500,000 grant to this Tuscan community where the police department, they bragged about 60 protective orders served, 174 firearms surrendered, quote unquote, by law enforcement. The court have connected more than 200 high-risk abuse survivors with service providers. So they're highlighting, trying to justify the value of, legalized swatting on individuals.
And by the way, when your guns get seized, they're all run through a forward trace and a NICS for check on the guns. And what happens is those forward trace numbers get inflated on every seizure. And then they'll put out more statistics showing how many states have had how many crime guns. But included in the crime gun statistic are all these seizures taking place where they're just running them through the system in a routine manner. and there's been no conviction for any crime. But they put them in that category of crime guns to, again, pump the numbers.
What I also find very funny in the article is this cancellation coincides with a recent proposed rule by the DOJ that would help restore gun rights to certain people with criminal convictions, including misdemeanor domestic violence offenses. So remember we talked a while back about the incredibly racist law that Chuck Schumer, where they
they stopped the
defunded the very ability for people to
33
get their rights
years.
restored. Yeah.
33 years.
Now they're tying that to helping restore people's rights to domestic violence. Isn't
Right.
that
So
nice?
what they're doing is they're trying to lay groundwork to fight the rights restoration by somehow trying to link it to domestic violence. Now, keep in mind that the domestic violence misdemeanor gun ban is something where you lose your gun rights for a misdemeanor. So historically, it was only originally violent felons. And then over time, it became just felons. And then that slippery slope, it fell to misdemeanor, but it's domestic violence. You can bet that down the road, the antis would have any misdemeanor. You lose your Second Amendment rights. And the crazy thing about it is if you commit harassment on someone who qualifies as a victim of domestic violence, such as a spouse, someone you had a dating relationship with, someone you are a shared household member with, either currently or previously, then that's domestic violence and you lose your gun rights for the whole country and the state. But if you go around all day long just harassing strangers and you've been charged over and over again with harassing strangers, no problem. You don't lose your gun rights. So that's the strange thing about how that law works.
Yeah. So kind of going off of this whole touch on red flag laws, I was very curious and I thought to myself, okay, who did it first? Who was the one? Who was responsible? Whose bright idea was it to create red flag laws? Why did this start? Because I find the way to argue with the left is always look to history because they can't dispute history. That's the part that kills their argument. So,
Even when they try to rewrite it.
well, that's their only. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why they try to remove civics, which which they did. So
Sure.
But from Oshun by this, turns out the first red flag law was enacted in Connecticut in 1999. Apparently, New York Times, the original article from 1998, being at the Connecticut lottery where it was Runkled accountant who shot 4 of his supervisors and himself. That was their whole justification for red flag, where he took Glock, apparently from what semi-automatic handgun, others say.
Did you ever notice how every anti-gun law is always based on the lowest common denominator? In other words, they have to find an incident somewhere, and then they use what's called the straw man technique. So this is the straw man technique to further gun rights oppression. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's actually how they try to argue that, if we had red flag laws, we would have been able to stop them. Except South Coast Today, this was the article written when they interviewed people. This is their argument. Beck frightened some of his coworkers because it turns out he liked to play paintball and had a gun.
Oh, paintball. Well, that does it.
Yeah.
And see how that's twisted. And this is something I encounter, and you and I both have encountered in the system. Well, they'll just twist where normally you'd say, hey, the guy is a target shooter. Oh, but he was a target shooter. Like that's somehow a negative. Or he played paintball. That's a negative. Like, no. I mean, the overwhelming, incredible super majority of anybody who plays paintball, is a target shooter, or for that matter, even a gun owner, does not commit crimes or wrongdoings. It's very small number. Yet they want to try to take away everybody's rights based on a few. And that's not what America is about.
Also highlighting the fact that going bald, and so he shaved his head. That's the ultimate red flag when you're losing your hair.
Yeah. I
course,
hope that doesn't become a Jersey disqualifier, because then I won't be able to possess guns anymore in Jersey, because I'm getting pretty thin up there, and
And of course, they ended with trespassers will be shot, survivors will be shot again. It was a sign by his father's door. So yeah, okay.
Well, they'll probably just increase the fee for hair. Like the more hair, the cheaper, and then less hair, more expensive. Or maybe they'll tax, like Russia at one point, they taxed beards. Remember I showed you that coin that was the tax paid so you could have a beard?
Yeah.
Maybe New Jersey will have to have some kind of gun hair tax. And of course, there'll be heavy licensing associated with that, and having to do extensive background checks and hair follicle examination and all that good stuff.
They also tried to argue for the reason of the shooting was he missed out on multiple promotions and wanted to be paid $2 more at his work. So if anyone at all who has ever been upset with their boss and wants to be paid more,
maybe
be red
he
flag.
Also had his red stapler taken.
Yeah, red stapler.
His red stapler. Yeah, that also is a key indicator for any kind of violent person, is if you have excessive concerns over your red stapler.
Yeah, so the entire birth of the red flag law is based entirely on someone who would not have been red flagged from what the evidence and things they brought up. Then nothing would have brought up the system like, oh man, and the factors like he's upset about his work and going bald. Yeah, that'll stop him.
Well, New Jersey has taken it to an even more extreme, because you have no due process on red flag up front. Zero, zip. Someone goes ex parte, meaning just them, talks to the police. They get an order signed to seize your guns, search your house, traumatize you and your family, invade your privacy, steal your property. And you never know it happens until after it's happened. And only afterwards, after you and your loved ones go through that entire traumatic experience, only then do you get to fight to try to get your guns and your gun rights back. It's absolutely zero due process. When you hear the left screaming about due process for, cartel members and all, well, New Jersey doesn't give due process to gun owners, right? Criminals, cartel, you name it. They're very concerned about due process, except when it comes to gun owners. Then who cares about due process?
Well, and then this is a good point that was brought up to me, is whenever they say the words due process or they say the words free speech, because that's the new big thing, or democracy, free speech TM, free speech trademark, because they want to make it so they can have their free speech, not you or I. And their democracy, their version of democracy, where it's mob rule on their end, where they have the power.
I don't want democracy, and our founding fathers didn't want democracy, and America is not a democracy. America is a republic. There's a huge difference between being a republic, a representative government, a republic, and a democracy. A democracy creates a tyranny of the majority. Our founding fathers didn't like it. It was demonstrated through history to be a failure. And how America got perverted into this idea that we're somehow a democracy, I don't know, because we're not. And I don't want us to be one. We're a republic, and we need to protect the republic.
Pledge of Allegiance, that's probably the reason why.
Yeah, I guess so. It's another move by the enemies of liberty and freedom. Well, Teddy, this week's GoFu, an important lesson in which the GoFu is the gun owner F up, and GoFus are expensive legal problems, but not always legal, that gun owners end up making mistakes and paying dearly, and you get to learn from them for free. So this week's GoFu is about storing guns at someone else's house. You cannot do that. I can't tell you how many times we get cases of individuals who are storing their firearms at their parents' house, and they don't live there now. The gun owner doesn't live there, and they're just storing them at a parent's house or at a friend's house, or they have other people's guns in their safe from other places. You can't do that in Jersey, okay? You have to store your guns within an exempted property, such as your home or your place of business that you own. If you have your guns at your friend's house, there's no exemption for that. Plus, it can be deemed a transfer to your friend, which would itself be unlawful. And then if your guns end up seized in an issue and they're taken and they end up finding them somewhere else, then they can not only use it to take away your gun rights, but to criminally charge you. So look, folks, if you're going to store your guns, you store them lawfully under the exemptions, which include at your home or at your place of business that's actually your place of business that you own, or a FFL gun dealer that does gun storage. But short of that, also other exempted properties such as at a range. But you can't just have friends keep your guns. You can't keep your friends' guns. You can't have your relatives' guns. Your relatives can't keep your guns. And this comes up a lot, and it is definitely a big GoFu. This is Evan Nappen and Teddy Nappen reminding you that gun laws don't protect honest citizens from criminals. They protect criminals from honest citizens.
Gun Lawyer is a Counterthink media production. The music used in this broadcast was managed by Cosmo Music, New York, New York. Reach us by emailing evan@gun.lawyer. The information and opinions in this broadcast do not constitute legal advice. Consult a licensed attorney in your state.